All right, we are live. Hopefully you guys can see us. I'm gonna hold this microphone, hope it's not, I'll try not to move too much. So, we got some awesome information to share with you guys. We got a special guest here. I think this is our first time on Facebook Live actually bringing Greg on. So, Greg has been with us since 2004.
2004, yeah.
2004. So he was our second employee, I think. Is that right? First or second employee?
I think third.
Okay.
Janet and Will.
Okay. So our third employee. So he's been with us now for 11, 12 years. Greg is an expert at real estate transactions. I would put him up against probably anyone in the United States in terms of his knowledge when it comes to closing contracts. He has done hundreds, if not thousands, probably over 1,000.
Thousands for sure.
So he's been involved in over 1,000 real estate transactions. Whereas I don't get into the nitty gritty about going back and forth on contracts. I hardly ever read a HUD-1. Greg is a pro, so a lot of great information. So housekeeping items. If you guys are watching this right now live, it means that you've liked my new my new Brad Chandler coaching page. I'm going to, sorry if I'm out of the screen here, I just want to see if it's showing up on, it's not showing up on my live feed because I want to be able to ask questions. All right, well, I don't know how we're going to, maybe one of us will go behind the camera and see if there's any questions when we're at that point. So if you guys are watching this live, that means you've liked my Brad Chandler page. If you haven't, click above in the description at any time when you're done whatever, and make sure that you like it. This is for people who aren't watching it live, and we'll see in a couple minutes or the next couple days. So jump into the meat of the content, because this is really good stuff. So I'm sitting in my office one day, and I can hear Greg at his desk, and he's talking about a buyer who did not perform, and now it's jamming us. It was a wholesale deal that we were getting ready to sell to an end cash buyer, and this buyer essentially backed out, and he's jamming us. And why is he jamming us? Because if you have a contract on a property and the buyer backs out, you can't just go and resell the property. That's probably a misconception among new investors. It sounds like that would make sense because, hey, they didn't perform, but that's not how it works in the real world. The real world makes it a requirement by law that you get the buyer to sign a release. So we couldn't get the buyer to sign a release because he wasn't being cooperative with us. So when I heard that, I said to myself, we've got to fix this. So I talked to Greg. Greg talked with our attorney, and they drafted some language. So Greg, tell everyone, what is it, what's the clause, and how does it protect us?
Sure. So basically, like Brad said, is the worst thing that can happen when you're wholesaling property is the buyer backs out at the last second, and then you're stuck holding the property, and a lot of times they'll go dark, they won't answer phone calls, they won't sign releases, they won't sign a release that says that the deposit comes to us like it's supposed to. So we put in our contract now that basically it says that the title company is not only authorized, but they're instructed to release the deposit to us if settlement does not occur by the date on the contract. So in the past, we had to get the buyer to actually sign a release, and then the money would come to us, and then we could resell a property. In this case, we can actually just go ahead and resell the property, we get the earnest money deposit, and we can move on and sell the property. So it makes it much easier for us.
So you guys can imagine, why does a buyer back out? The buyer can back out for 100 different reasons, some legitimate, some not legitimate. But there could be some animosity, there could be some emotion. So you can imagine if the buyer's pissed off about something that we're not doing, that wasn't our fault, do you think the buyer's going to cooperate with you? Do they typically cooperate?
Absolutely not.
No. So I'm telling you guys because, like I said before in our meetup groups, we've made millions of dollars, but we've lost millions of dollars. I want to teach you guys how not to lose the millions of dollars like we did. This is one of them. This is an awesome clause that protects you as a seller. Now, my next question, Greg, is, okay, so we've got this great contract clause, which we will share. I'll share on this, I'll share in the comment section below when I'm done. So we've got this great clause now. A buyer backs out,
Yep.
and you go to the title company, and the title company says, well, I'm still not releasing the contract unless I get a release. What do you do? What do we do? What should an investor do?
So the contract, the verbiage in the contract actually serves as a release, essentially. So it serves as release the deposit and release the contract. So it says, in the past, like I said, you had to get the release signed, and the title company they represent the contract. They don't represent the buyer or the seller. So basically, if you put in verbiage in the contract that says this is what you do in each case, then they don't have to ask for any instructions. So if it says, if settlement doesn't occur on or before February 27th, then here's what you do. You release the contract and you release the deposit to the buyer.
Okay, but
Or to the seller, I'm sorry.
To the sellers. But we're bound to find we're bound to have a title company, and I just realized that my mic isn't plugged in. So hopefully my iPhone is good enough. Hold this for a second, Greg.
Okay.
Hopefully the iPhone's good enough to pick up what we said thus far. And this is the fun of technology. I wonder if I can also tag you while I'm back here. So Greg, what I'm going to ask this behind the camera. Is there any way that I can tag you in here? I don't think I can. So we're bound to. Super hot mic. Hopefully you guys heard everything. If not, we'll do it again sometime. We're bound to have a title company that, even though we have this great clause that's written by a real estate attorney, we're bound to have a title company say, I'm still not going to do it without a release.
Sure.
What should an investor do in that case, do you think?
I mean, each investor should have their own real estate attorney that they talk to who helps, like for instance, we have one that helps us draft this document. And we would just go to them and say, listen, attorney, can you please send something to the title company saying you need to abide by the contract or else you're going to get sued as well. So make sure that they, like I said, make sure they abide by the contract and not by either just the buyer or just the seller.
So Greg made a great point. If you're a real estate investor, whether you're full-time or not, you have to have a real estate attorney. Your real estate attorney isn't necessarily going to be the closing attorney because there's a whole different skill set. Some closing attorneys aren't experts at the actual contract, nor do they want to get involved in contract litigation or interpreting a contract. So make sure you have an attorney. Another thing that you could do is when you put the contract in for settlement, is you have an explicit conversation with the title company that says, hey, read this clause in the contract, because if this buyer backs out, I want to make sure, you should get this in writing, I want to make sure that you're going to release that contract and you're not going to make me go out and chase this buyer down to get a signed release. So those are two things that you can do to protect yourself. Greg, any other insights on this issue that you can shed light on that you think would be helpful for investors to know?
Not on this particular issue, but I would say on other issues, just make sure you read the contract completely. For instance, we had properties in Virginia that we wholesaled, 10 years ago or so, back when I was first starting with all the contracts, and we were selling it as is. The buyer checked the as is clause in the contract, but they didn't check each individual box as well. So there's different clauses. There's the as is pertaining to trash, debris, termites, property condition, things like that. And they just checked as is. So they weren't doing an inspection, but we were still required to remediate any of the other items. So we had to get, I thought we were selling the property completely as is. We had to pay $1,000 to have the trash removed. We had to pay $500 to have the termites treated in the property. So while it didn't bankrupt us, if you lose $1,500 on each deal, that adds up over time, especially.
Okay, awesome information. Guys, we're going to open it up to questions, and I'm going to hand Greg the mic, and I'm going to go behind the camera where we can actually see it if you guys have questions. Before I do that, though, I have a favor to ask you, and that is, if you like this content, please share it. Click share it to your wall, because that's the way that I'm going to know that you like content like this, and then we're going to develop more and more content. So anytime you see any content that I produce that you like, go ahead and share it. If you don't like it, private message me, email me, whatever, and say, hey, I didn't like it because of this reason. Here's what I really want to hear, and we'll try to provide that content. Secondly, before we get into questions, we still have some spots open for free coaching by yours truly on our upcoming podcast. So if you want to hop in the hot seat with me and you haven't already done it at a local meetup, and it doesn't matter if you're here in DC or you're in Wyoming, it doesn't matter. This real estate investing stuff works everywhere in the country. If you're interested in getting a free 30-minute coaching session with me on my podcast, go to expresshomebuyers.com/free-coaching, and you can apply there. We've had a lot of people that are interested, but we're going to be doing this for years to come, so if we have to start a wait list, we can start a wait list. So let me know if you have any questions about that. Greg, I'm going to turn over the mic to you, and I'm going to see if we have any questions. Guys, we'll open this up to questions of on this topic or any questions. So let me know. Wish I could see. So I really don't see anything right now.
See if it's on mine.
See if it's on yours. And I'll also look on my, if you guys have any questions, anything real estate related, Greg is an expert, like I said, with contracts, contract negotiation. If you want to ask any questions, how do I even go to where live things are?
The notifications, the play button.
Okay, so now I can see it. So I'm going to even type in here, any questions, guys? Well, Greg, we must have done just like an amazing job of explaining this because no one is no one's asking any questions. We'll stay live for 5 or 10 more seconds. I'm going to tag you in this somehow. Or everyone is out enjoying this awesome weather.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me directly as well if you find any questions later on. I'm more than happy to answer anything you have.
Okay, guys, we're going to wrap. Great information, says Bill. Bill, really appreciate it. Where's everyone? How many views do we have? Where's everyone from? I'd love to hear in the Facebook comments where in the United States you happen to be. Can you type real quick just where you guys are watching this from? Okay, all right, we're going to Alexandria. All right, we got one person commenting. Thanks, Bill. I'm glad you thought the information was helpful. If you could, please share it. I'm looking down at my computer screen so I can get questions, so sorry that I'm not looking exactly at the camera. Hartley from DC, thank you. Did you like the information? Brian Rockwell from Fort Worth, Texas.
Wow, that's great.
Go Cowboys. Hopefully next year we'll get them done. Got some likes going through. Guys, we're here. We're starting a coaching program that's going to likely be thousands of dollars. This is a free session. I will answer any questions that you have. If it has to do with marketing, it has to do with sales, it has to do with construction. Greg has also probably handled, I don't know, millions of dollars of construction. Literally millions of dollars of construction. So there was years where we did over $10 million in 1 year. So Greg knows a thing or two about construction. You guys have any questions on scope, anything like that? So Brian, how long of an option period do you usually try to get from a seller? When we don't really do options. We do a feasibility study, and I believe it's 21 days. We do as long as we can, ideally, but typically it's 21 days. So 21 days. And again, we don't do options. One of the things that I'm not going to teach as a coach is I'm not going to teach all these fancy creative financing ideas and options and stuff, because honestly they get complicated, and a lot of the gurus out there make it sound so easy, but we live this every day. We've tried it and it's backfired on us, and we're pretty smart guys. It just becomes very, very complicated. So you're not going to hear a lot about lease options and subject tos and all that. What you're going to learn from me is how to make a lot of money, using awesome marketing to get sellers in the door, motivate sellers, and then how to wholesale them for prices that most wholesalers around the country aren't getting. We have a unique way of doing it where we drive a lot of buyers in. So that's what you're going to get from my coaching. Not all these, I won't say silly, but all these creative financing. I know it works for some people, but it has not worked for us. Any other questions, guys? Again, just looking down at my screen. All right, we're going to wrap. Thanks everyone for their time, and hopefully this was helpful. If it is, please share it.